Due to the rise in home costs and rent in our community, there has been a rise in the number of homeless living on the coast side and people who are now vehicularly housed. In the recent survey that was done about those who are living in their vehicles, 10 of 12 came forward as saying Pacifica is their hometown. So this has been where they have lived.
I moved here. My parents bought a house when I was 2, 1970. I've been here ever since.
I bought my first home here in Lindemar, and I lost it in the housing crisis back in 2008. I moved to an apartment here in Sharp Park and got run out in 2017 when my rent was actually doubled.
I've spent 1,115 days living on the street in my RV. I've made great strides and efforts to find my hope, be sufficient, proactive for myself, and get myself out of the situation I'm in. Everything that I have today is in Pacifica, and to have to move out of town would disconnect me from all my services and from my community. I'd have to rebuild, and it would set me way back.
I was born and raised in Pacifica. I've lived here my entire life. I am a UC Santa Cruz graduate. I also attended Skyline Community College and Terra Nova High School. I am now currently living in Pacifica and working for the Boys and Girls Club. I still know so many people here. I can see my cousins, and anytime I leave the house, I have just a connection to this place that I can't describe, but I love it.
I'm her mother, native born, went also to Terra Nova High School. Because we lost everything. That was pretty much a shock because it came on so unexpectedly. That's why I tell people you never know it could happen to you. You just never know.
Yeah, at that point, our rent was so expensive and getting more and more expensive that we did not have the funds to pay it. So we were evicted. At that point, we had two options, either to start living in an RV or go to a homeless shelter. So we tried homeless shelters first, immediately got sick, violently ill. Staff simply told us that's what happens when you come here. Everyone gets it. And that's when my mom made the decision to leave the shelters and try the RV housing instead.
But living in the RV is hard. It's not people think it is, and nobody likes to live that way. Nobody wants to live that way.
The one story I tell all the time is when I first moved into my RV, I had 5 gallons of water, and I thought I was pretty set. It was gone in less than 2 days, and that became a real problem. I think the biggest thing for me was not just vigilance, but hyper-vigilance, being super aware of your surroundings, the noises outside, all times of the day, all times of the night. So I wanted to stay off the radar and not be that one that people were pointing fingers to.
You try to be invisible. You really do.
Because you're ashamed, even though you didn't do anything wrong, they still make you feel ashamed, and you carry that with you for a long time. It really messes with your head, your self-esteem, and then it would bug me because people say, oh, go get a job. Well, it's not so easy to just go get a job if you haven't had a shower in a week, you know?
When we were living in our RV that was parked on Rosita, we noticed that there were holes in our windshield from a BB gun. There's a lot of active harassment and aggression. We're hearing about people being confronted, people being stalked who live in the RVs, and on Nextdoor, neighbors asking, like, we need to know who these people are. We demand to know who's living in these RVs. So we used to park our RV right there because it seemed the most out of the way. We weren't parking directly in front of someone's house, and we had all this forest right next to us. We were following 72-hour rules, but apparently people had been complaining. We had no idea. One morning we just pulled up to the RV and it was being towed. We had left to get breakfast and use a restroom. We came back and saw police cruisers and a tow truck towing our RV away.
So the officers gave us until the tow trucks arrived to get all our stuff out. So I was just throwing it all out on the sidewalk.
So as I was watching the RV get towed, my mom tried to negotiate with the police what was going on. Someone came out from the townhouses and completely ignored me and my mother and proceeded to thank the officers for towing our RV.
Really just turned a blind eye to the fact that a family had just lost their housing.
Losing our RV meant losing the only shelter that we had and potentially losing all of our belongings and being completely uprooted again.
That was a quiet ride to school because we didn't know. I didn't want her to ask us where we were going to be after she got picked up or where we were going to sleep that night or anything because I didn't have any answers for her at the time.
Yeah.
One of the initiatives proposed has been permitted parking for those individuals who are willing to work with the Pacifica Resource Center on a pathway to more permanent housing. We were asked if each of the clergy could support an initiative that would allow for safe parking in one of our lots. We've each been asked if we could support 2 families or individuals at a time who are currently vehicularly housed. So we would welcome the stranger in.
My opinion is that there's a handful of people that need help psychologically, financially, food, and otherwise. And they've lost hope and they're barely just staying above water. Given a nice, safe place to stay, those people would rise up and they'd find their hope just like me. And it was really difficult for me, but I know some people out there that would be able to do the same thing I did. It would help out a lot of people.
Well, so if we had a safe parking program, that everyone could focus on, what they need to focus on, whatever barriers they have to having housing. And how many people live in this town? And it just takes 2 people just to have someone to give you a little hope back, someone to believe in you. And it can change your whole life.
And it's sad. I'm very prideful of this town, and I would love for leadership to address housing insecurity and show some heart.
Here at St. Peter's, I know it has been a paramount issue to determine what it is we can do to support our neighbors in need, especially those who have had the humility to step forward and say, I need help.
It seems like there is an incredible hesitation towards empathy, which I find very disheartening and disappointing in leaders of this city. They're attacking and kind of perpetuating the fear-mongering around people living in the RVs. They're not helping it, they're hurting.
The issue was serious before COVID-19. And since COVID-19, it has become extremely serious. There has been a moratorium on evictions, but should the evictions begin to take place in earnest, we were going to see far more people on the street. It could be us tomorrow. This is going to take collaboration across our city, and so we're eager to partner with the Pacifica Resource Center, with our city government, with our police department, and with our businesses here in Pacifica in order to make it the place we all believe it to be, which is a heavenly place on earth.